certainly has demonstrated that she's done that. And now tonight she's going to share with us some information to help us all as we learn about the artist statement and get inspired to write our own. Emily?
I thank you very much for those very kind words. A lot of it is actually even true. And we had to be kind of truthful. My sister is visiting from Sacramento tonight, so she's kind of doing some fact checking on my upbringing to make sure that we're telling something that is reasonably true. Anyway, but tonight is about the artist statement, and I know that most of you all have had occasion, whether it's on an application or doing publicity or something, where someone has asked about the artist statement. So what I've done is I've prepared actually a relatively short, if wordy, presentation. And I've left the slides kind of wordy so that when we post them on the internet, if you want to go back and refer to them, while you're thinking about your artist statement, that you can go back and pretty much get the whole, get the whole content. It should really give you a good start to go. So where we're going to start is next. Which is easier, marketing and selling your widgets to aliens or writing your artist statement? And next, of course, the answer is, marketing and selling your widgets to aliens. Most people don't like writing an artist statement. It's difficult. It requires a lot of introspection. You should be able to write well, and people come up with a million excuses for why they for why they shouldn't have to write an artist statement. Next. I promised Marianne I would not read all of these slides. I'm assuming you all are all literate adults. Next. And to all of those excuses that you give me, I say too bad. You really should write one anyway. Next. Now, some of you, this is kind of what we're going to talk about tonight. The slideshow talks about what an artist statement is, how it differs from a bio, and when you use each one, why do you need one? What are they used for? Some of the tools that will help you get started, some exercises that you can do to help you write one of your own. There's kind of a list of do's and don'ts, which actually some of them are rather amusing, and how to adapt your artist statement to fit a particular purpose, because there's a lot of people, organizations that ask for artist statements, and they use them for all different things. And so how do you figure out what they're really asking for? And that's a lot of it is, what is somebody asking for when they say, give me an artist statement? Then we are going to have a short panel. We have Liz Stiles and Bob Horowitz, who, of course, have had years and years of experience with artist statements and how they've evolved and how they change and how they use them for different types of requirements or different projects. And then we can have a short Q&A if there's anything that that you want to know a little bit more about. There's two things I should say. None of us can really say that we're an expert in artist statements. And I want to be the first one to say, I'm not the expert on this. I've done a little bit of research. But it's very difficult to track ROI or return on investment for an artist statement. I might think my artist statement is wonderful, but I don't know, maybe if I wrote it a little bit differently, I would be a millionaire selling art. It's very difficult to say. So I've taken some of the concepts that people from like the New York Foundation of Arts, what other experts theoretically have said about it, and I've kind of condensed and consolidated all of it to hopefully give you all a pretty good method to go with. We also, I think it's also to say when we get to the Q&A, don't start asking, well, my artist statement says blah, blah, blah. How should I change it? None of us can really help the others writing the artist statement. We can help you with grammar, we can help you with punctuation, we can help you with sentence structure, but what you say in your artist statement comes from you. It's your story. It's the story of your art. And mercifully, that's one of the really unique things about you that you can use to help sell your widgets. We've talked about creating a difference for your widgets and how that difference is important for people who may want to buy them. Why yours is special or more special than someone else's. One of the ways you can do that is by having your artist statement tell about your story. People are always attracted to the stories. Facts and figures, maybe they'll remember, maybe they won't. But the story is what touches people's emotions. And that's what you want to touch with your artist statement. Next. So, what is an artist statement? Well, there are a number of definitions, but these two certainly help. The written description part is important. It does have to be in writing. Parts of it you may want to memorize, but it's giving people a deeper insight into your work and why you do it and why it's important to you and why it's important to do this thing. It also serves as a general introduction. What is this? Why is this? And so forth. If people come into your booth someplace and want to know what it is you do, it's a way of describing to them, what you're doing sort of neatly and concisely. Caveat here is it's not telling people how to feel about your art, whether they should like your art, whether they should be disturbed by your art, or anything else. It's really, this is all coming from you. Next. Oops, I think we skipped through a couple. Yeah. There we go. And one of the things that we wanted to make clear is that an artist statement is different from an artist's bio. Some people will ask you for a bio, some people will ask you for an artist statement, some organizations will ask you for both. An artist statement is about your work. It's the story of your work, it's your story, it touches emotions, it reaches out to people and grabs them and makes them interested in your work. The bio is about you. It's about where you trained, where you studied, what awards you've gotten, honors that you've had. It talks about you as an artist and builds credibility in your ability to do whatever art it is that you're doing. Bios are frequently necessary, so it's important to write one of those as well. And this is another interesting distinction. Biographies are typically written in third person. You're talking about yourself as though you're another person. But artist statements are written in the first person. I do this, my work, I love, I want, I'm moved by, and so forth. And you should keep your bio up to date because you never know when it's going to be needed. Now, why it's necessary. I can imagine some of you are sitting here saying, good God, why should I go through this exercise? All I want to do is craft shows. Some of the craft shows ask for artist statements, some of them don't. As you get into gallery things or if you get into more shows that are a little bit more difficult to get into, some of them start to pay a lot of attention to artist statements. In truth, I have been on some juries and watched how the juries work, and at least in a couple of circumstances, they didn't pay any attention to the artist statements whatsoever. It was purely on, whether the slides of the work looked good. But I also know as you get into other things, it becomes really important. And apart from that, not only does it tell the audience about your work, but it helps you think about your work. When you're doing the exercises for the artist statement, you can go back a while and think about what early influences your work, kind of where you went with it, what you started here, and then you started to do this, and then you started to do this. And as you see the whole path that your work has taken, even if you never use the artist statement for a show, it can help start to point opportunities for directions for you to take your work creatively. And, whether or not you ever use it for a show, being able to look at your work and decide kind of where you want to go and how you want to evolve can be enormously helpful to any craftsperson or artist. And the third point on here is also really important. When you do your artist statement, you create, you should anyway, create create a relationship between your work and whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. Again, it's touching on those emotional ties that make you more memorable. If you have a great story about your art and yourself, then people are going to remember you much more, whatever the word is. I'm losing my train of thought. Right, fervently, than they did before. And then apart from that, it's a good source of information out there for when you have to send something to a publicist, newspaper, or whatever. Okay, next. Okay, some of the tools to get you started. This is really kind of an exercise, and it gets you started to think about the important things that will help you create your artist statement later. And you really should write these questions, or write the answers to these questions down. They will help you find the phrases and find the ideas that ultimately you want to pull out and put in your artist statement. You won't put all of these things in your artist statement, but it helps you start to find the threads of the story that will help it be a really interesting story that make it uniquely you and makes your work uniquely yours. It has, what does your work look like? Why do you like to create it? And so forth and so on. I promised Mary Ann I wouldn't read them. So there's this slide, and the next one has additional questions. And as I said, this will be up on the website in the next few days, so you can go back and do it. But it's really a good way to think about your craft or your art and where you've been and where you're going and what about it is important to you. I think I was talking to somebody the other day, and it was like thinking about these questions helped them remember what was so important about this when they started, and it really kind of helped them refocus on new directions to take their art. So anyway, those are the questions. Then the next step is to take all that verbiage that you've now created and start to create lists of words and phrases that describe your work, that describe you both as a person and an artist, and so forth. What are your artistic values? Are you really into recycled things? Are you really into, appreciation of nature? What are the things that really inspire you to express yourself in this particular media? Think about your creative processes. How would you describe those? And then write all those phrases down. Next. Now that you have the tools, you have a choice. You can punt and give all this information to a writer friend and pay them a fair amount of money, or you can begin your writing process. Next. Now, here's the basic structure, at least according to the experts. Use those with air quotes. Start with an overview paragraph. It will remind you of any good essay writing skills. You start with a statement about your work. The next thing is to go into detail about, and support it. Why those things that you talked about in the first paragraph are critical. Talk about why you use your materials. It's very important to explain, for example, why you feel that popsicle sticks are the best way to, predict the effect of a post-apocalyptic society on squirrels. You have to find links and to convey what it is you do and why you chose that particular medium to do it. And then finally, you go back and you write your summary at the end, hitting the most important points. What you really want people to take away with them and remember about you, to remember about your story. And if they take away a short sentence. Oh, yeah, she's the one that did the popsicle stick post-apocalyptic stuff. You know, you can say that 3 times fast, you win, but it will be memorable. Okay, next. Here are the do's. Keep it short, coherent, and clear. Clarity is always at the top of the list. If it's not clear, it's not going to matter what you say. You use the first person perspective, which we talked about. Use colorful and descriptive language. And an example of that is if you do something that's really whimsical, use wordplay to describe it. I'm thinking of, there's an artist, Charles Harper, who does very graphic and frequently kind of humorous
Silk screen.
Thank you. Silk screen prints. The silk screen prints. And everyone is attached with a little story, and there's always double entendres in there. It's very clever writing, and when you get to his artist statement, it's the same way. And there's such a link between his art and the way he talks about himself and the way he tells his story that, you know, you can't help but remember, oh yeah, he's the one who, you know, he did a cardinal in the winter, and he's sitting on a branch, and there's about an inch or 2 of snow on the branch, and then he has this bright red cardinal, and then there's an inch or 2 of snow on top of the cardinal, and then it goes back to the other side of the branch, and they called it cool cardinal, you know, and he tied that to the cardinal in the winter. So you want to do that with your artist statement. Make sure your personality as an artist comes through. That goes along with connecting your art with the medium you chose. That's the popsicle and the post-apocalyptic dystopian society and squirrels. This next point is critical. Proofread, proofread, proofread. Then get your friends to proofread. Make sure your sentence structure is reasonable and varied. You know, make sure your grammar is correct. Make sure your punctuation is correct. You know, and if that's not something you're really good at, make sure that you find a couple of other people who really are. And then you want to update it. For example, for the show that I'm doing out of the Burn Gallery, it's called Into the Woods, and it's a celebration of trees. So, you know, I kind of reworded my artist statement to start out, you know, I love trees, and then went on and on about why I love trees and how I related that to glass and so forth. Not that I'm saying that's a great artist statement. I'm not the expert, but you can tailor it to specific circumstances. And then you should update it periodically anyway to make sure that it's reflecting new directions or other things that you're doing. Next. Now here are the don'ts. Don't imitate that theoretical or pseudo-intellectual language that you frequently hear or read in art critic magazines. You know, maybe if you have a PhD in rocket scientist and you're, you know, and you've created an algorithm that designs graphics to, you know, explore the ends of the universe, yeah, okay, maybe, you know, you're going to end up with a little bit of technical language. But the reality is most of the people who are reading your artist statement and assessing it are not going to be terribly impressed nor understand a lot of this, you know, I'm representing the fruitfulness of, you know, stay away with it. Stick to you and your work and what makes the best story for people. There's no need to try and impress people with your knowledge of art or craft or history. If you're going to impress them, let them be with your work and your story. Don't tell readers what they should be seeing, you know, how they should feel, any of those. Don't use phrases that express insecurities. None of this, I'm hoping to, or I'm trying to, or I'm endeavoring to. Yeah. Don't compare yourself to other artists. You can say you're influenced by them, you know, and maybe there's a weird combination of artists that have influenced you through life, and sometimes that can be really interesting in its own way. You don't quote others. If anybody said something nice about you, put it in your bio, not your artist statement. And don't try to dress it up with fancy fonts and weird paper and all that kind of stuff. People really want to see what the content is. Well written, it's concise, it reflects your personality, as an artist, and it reflects your work as an artist. Okay, next. The experts recommend 3 different sizes, if you will, of artist statements. One is the elevator pitch. This is the famous 25-word or so version that you have time to tell somebody between floors on an elevator. Memorize it. You can use it in cover letters. There's a lot of places you can use it. A half-pager, that's a little bit longer and a little bit more in depth. That sometimes works as an introduction for applications, for project descriptions, and so forth. And then the one-pager, goes into more depth. That is what you can send to, it's a reference for marketing purposes. It's in applications. If you're using promotional stuff, if you're going to be in a gallery and they ask you for an artist statement, you get them the long version. Next. These are the sources, and so it becomes clear that, I'm not the one who's trying to be the expert here. But anyway, New York Foundation of the Arts, the Bronx Museum of the Arts, Virginia Commonwealth University. So all of these people have actually had cogent things to say about artist statements. Anyway, so that brings us, I think, to the end of the slideshow. Now we'd like to have Liz and Bob come up and talk a little bit about how they've used artist statements, how their statements have evolved, when they've had unusual requests about their for artist statements, and then we can do our Q&A.
It's so kind of amazing.
Actually, there's a couple of chairs if you guys want to sit down or stand up, however. Who would like to go first and talk about your art statements?
Well, I should tell you, I once had a fantastic artist statement. One of my computer crashes, I lost it. This was one that I wrote when I went over with a group to teach in Russia. And I really, really, really worked on that one. And I think I did manage to incorporate some of the things you said, but I hate to tell you how long it took me to do it. And I was very proud of it. And I think it was the first or second computer crash that I couldn't get it back. Now, I haven't needed one since then until I applied to the Mountain Heritage show, the Harper's Ferry show. And theirs was a little bit different. They wanted, what? Oh. They wanted an artist statement, but not, what they wanted was a double statement. They wanted to know about your inspiration and your work, but they also wanted an awful lot of biographical information. Okay. So that one I'm not quite as proud of as an artist statement. It's a double statement, and they wanted no more than a page and a half, and they wanted so much biographical that I didn't have time in it to give all the, inspiration and a little bit of what inspired me, but the history of how I developed it. So I think I should get ready and try, as you said. That was the second time I've needed one, to try to recreate that first one. And when I did that first one, I didn't have all this excellent information to go by, but I think I followed some of the rules, and I was rather proud of it. But not most places that I apply to don't really want an artist statement. At Harper's Ferry, you have to have it. You have to have it framed in your booth for everybody to read when they come in. And they also want a picture of you doing your craft. And that, I don't know, have you come across that, Emily, that they want the picture with it?
Some of them do, some of them don't. It's every organization wants something a little bit different. It's not a cookie cutter. One
Right.
thing will do everything.
What they wanted at Harper's Ferry was not what a gallery might want. They really were interested in knowing about their artists in addition. everything else. And that one would not probably fit all the criteria that you had here, but it's time that I did get back to writing one like the original one. Bob?
Well, my experience is first break the rules, so the rules just so Emily do, I don't follow. I first developed mine for the gallery that I'm in, which is the Artist Undertaking Gallery in Occoquan, probably 5 years ago. I'm not sure I had one before that, and it took a long time to develop it. But mine is a combined artist statement and a bio on one page. It's on the computer, and I can take it and I can cut it up. I can update it as necessary. I can break it in half and just use the artist statement part where I need it, or use the bio part where I need it. And it took a lot of time to do it. The other aspect of mine is brevity. I don't see how, Emily, you could put all the information that you're looking for on a one-pager. But
Well, you're not supposed to put all the information on it. You're supposed to think about all that information and pick what the pieces that tell your story the best.
right. So actually, this is my standard artist statement. You probably can't see in the back, but I do have a picture on it. And it's on my website. It's on our gallery site. And the biggest use, the biggest benefit of this is in my booths is to have this in a frame that people stop by. It's on the end cap, and people stop and read it. And I think the thing that they see the most in here is I have, because it's got the combined bio, is that I said I started wood turning when I retired from the Coast Guard. And I have more people stop and look at that and ask me about that, so it starts a conversation. So to me, the reason for having this, if you don't need it for an entry into a show, is to have it so that somebody might stop and read it, and it starts a conversation with your customer. Now, I also show work at Hardwood Artisans in Shirlington, and I have a smaller version that I have there. It just reduces some of the information. Sometimes I'll actually use the organization's name, so I think I might have the Artist Undertaking Gallery up somewhere around here on one of them. I might have NVHG for the NVHG shows, and I might have Hardwood Artisans for the Hardwood Artisans place. So you can do a lot with, because you have a computer, and you can change it as necessary. But to me, the biggest purpose for this is if you're not going to enter contests and into the fancy juried shows, is to start a conversation with your customer in your booth. So I say be brief. The thing that I take away from what Emily presented most of all is proofread, 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 and have somebody who knows English work on it. Because I can tell you that my daughter and my wife, who are both English majors, spent a lot of time helping me write this. I couldn't get the grammar proper and to make it short and sweet. And so that's it.
I agree with what he said, because on my artist statement, I say, well, I'm a paleontologist. Oh, how did you get into this? Starts the conversation. And how did you get, into crafting and doing shows? And how did you go from science to shows? And I tell him that of probably 20 of the most famous quilters who have written books, 10 of them are biologists. I don't know why biology and creativity go together. And so this, again, the same thing for me. It leads to a conversation.
My short experience, and this will only take about 15 seconds, I've written some for shows. I don't know whether they've helped me get in or not. But when we were doing the gallery show out in Middleburg, I asked the gallery owner, I said, what do you want in an artist statement? What do you want it to say? And she says, I don't really care, but for God's sake, don't make it boring. So anyway, with that, I think we can go on to questions. Does anyone have any questions for anybody, or would you just rather we go away? Okay. Oh, yeah.
I
I was part of one of the galleries in Occoquan, and my job was to write the bios and the artist statements for the newsletters. And I found that when people tried to do this, they just got into their shyness and were sort of afraid to blow their own horn. And I found that if I sat with them and reflected about their art and asked them questions, they would get over the shyness. So I think it's a good idea to sit down with somebody whose opinion that you value, that will talk these things through with you and sort of bring it out of you and get you talking. And I would volunteer to do that for anybody who would like to do that.
Yeah, it's good. Mary Ann Chung is also very good at it. Anybody else? Okay, we will go away. Thank you so much for being polite.